You won't believe what Kody did to Savannah this Christmas. On camera, the real truth about Kody and Robyn's parenting style slipped away quietly, and it hurts much more than anyone anticipated. From birthdays that were forgotten to outright ignoring his daughter during the holidays, Kody's behavior is more than just emotional distance. And Robyn, the woman who professes to be holding the family together, didn't bat an eye in providing Savannah even a small gesture of kindness. While the rest of the family succumbs to a disintegration of sorts, Kody and Robyn hold on for dear life to their own account of things, applying emotional spin and strategically produced moments in order to maintain a front. Yet behind closed doors, something far more profound is shattering. This episode deconstructs the manipulation, the emotional impact, and the double standards that ultimately drove the Brown family beyond the point of return. You'll hear the real story behind the big move to Flagstaff, how Logan stepped in as the true father figure, and why Solomon, once Kody's favorite, has quietly disappeared from view. It's a tangled web of loyalty, ego, and silence, and it all leads to one heartbreaking question. What happens when a father stops showing up? See now for a closer look at the breakdown of the Brown family and the decisions that altered everything. Sometimes what appears to be family bonding is actually emotional manipulation. If you rewatch some of these scenes, you can really see patterns of behavior around Robyn and her daughters and how they behave in emotional situations. "Oh my God, I'm so excited for the adoption," they exclaim over the top. The entire exchange emits that rather unmistakable pick-me vibe. And it's not once when there's a group activity or the cameras are on, it seems to appear. One wonders, are these genuine reactions, or are they coached to perform a role? And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because one moment just doesn't sit right. Remember when Hunter came home for Thanksgiving after his Air Force training? Robyn's daughters rushed the door, racing each other in a dramatic stampede to be the first to hug him. But instead of feeling heartwarming, it came off as weirdly staged, almost like a competition for attention or approval. And that's not the only time it feels off. Their behavior often seems emotionally immature, more dependent than you'd expect from kids their age. There's little sign of self-confidence or independence. It's hard not to think Robyn plays a big role in shaping how they behave, especially when the spotlight is on. And then there are the family interviews. Anytime the group gathers to discuss values or the future, it's Robyn doing all the talking, and doing it loudly. The irony is that she was the newest addition to the family, and she talks like the final word. It's difficult not to get the impression of self-importance. "I've approved the adoption and the name change," she says in one of those scenes, like it's her decision alone. But here's where the emotional stakes get even heavier. During the adoption storyline, Robyn and Kody try to push a narrative of joy and celebration. They want the kids to show excitement. Aurora bursts into tears, while Brianna and Dayton just sit there blank-faced and unsure how to respond. You can practically feel the emotional scripting. You can almost see the anticipation hanging in the air, and the unspoken annoyance when the children fail to respond the correct way. And yet, what is entirely glossed over is the underlying fact: these children were forced to observe their biological father legally relinquish his parental rights. That is not paperwork. That is emotional abuse. But on the show, it's dealt with as if it were a celebration, not a wound. To make it even more confusing, their adoptive father is still alive and in touch with them. Dayton, as a matter of fact, ultimately returned to his given name, David Preston. That decision in and of itself opens up an even larger question. Was the adoption truly about love and harmony, or was it about control? "I can tell they're enthusiastic," Robyn assures, "but they're nervous." Nervous is an understatement, but perhaps for different reasons than she imagines. Robyn's emotional pull clearly goes deep. Her children appear to take their emotional leads directly from her. If she's worried, they're worried. If she's crying, they're crying. It's like their feeling of safety rests solely on her moods. And that sort of emotional atmosphere, it doesn't create confidence. It creates dependency. Once you see it, you can't not see it. It's like seeing someone go through their family like a DIY project, tearing it down, rebuilding it their way, and walking out when it no longer fits them. And now enter Kody, with a wrench in hand and a new plan to fix everything. "I'm not ready to move on yet," he says. Not everybody's even seen Flagstaff. Classic Kody, he seems to genuinely believe that a new zip code is the answer to years of emotional damage. A fresh house, a new car, a different city, maybe even a different wife, and somehow that'll patch up the past. It's nearly impressive how fundamentally he doesn't get growth. Bailing on your environment doesn't make the stuff that is busted in there fix itself. Of course, Robyn's right behind him to come along for yet another major family move. Christine likewise agrees after she sees the neighborhood. But the reality, peace will forever be just beyond the grasp of individuals who won't look within. Without genuine accountability or self-reflection, every new beginning is just a continuation of the same vicious cycle. Two wives hadn't even laid eyes on the property yet when Kody was already in the process of packing up the dream. And this is not new. It's a trend. Whenever things are difficult, he hits the reset button. New wife, new baby, new home, as if he's restarting a video game and expecting a higher score. The thing that still hurts for the kids though is, they relocated practically 20 times while they were young. 20. One choice by Kody, and the entire family had to shift over and over. There was never stability in actuality, only another guarantee of this time it'll be better. There was never actually concern for the stability of the children, not for the needs of the wives, not even for the burden on the finances of the family. With Kody, the pattern was always the same: distract, deflect, and spend, instead of facing what's really broken. "I'm really team one house," someone says on camera. But Kody's response is always "why not?" That "why not" speaks volumes. It's not about planning or responsibility, it's about chasing the next thing. Buy something new. Start over somewhere else. Avoid self-reflection at all costs. And if it all goes to pieces, well then it's someone else's fault. Ironically enough, Kody discovered his perfect complement in Robyn. She copes with her stress by shopping online. He copes with his by bodily fleeing each mess he makes. And together they appear quite happy to continue the cycle. Kody says he loves all his children just the same. But if you pay close attention to the show, the video paints a different picture. He loves Solomon, someone remarks. They're so connected. And it is true, through their time in Las Vegas, Solomon appeared to be the child who drew Kody to him. He was the one he held, laughed with, cuddled in a way that was a little different from the others. But that bond did not hold. After the relocation to Flagstaff, something subtly changed. Within a couple of years, that visible proximity was over. Kody and Solomon ceased showing up together in significant ways. That father-son connection, it appeared to melt away right before the cameras. And then there was the time that made it glaringly obvious. At Gwen's engagement party, Kody made a remark about his youngest daughter, Ariella, calling her better than any of his grandchildren. It was supposed to be endearing, perhaps even flirtatious, but it said everything. Kody constantly speaks of Ari, how difficult it is to leave her, how much she cares for him. That sort of love, we never or hardly ever hear it spoken of Solomon anymore. Even Robyn has admitted the distinction, telling us Ari is more like Kody, extroverted, effervescent, dramatic. Solomon quieter, and perhaps that's the issue. The older Solomon got, the more contemplative he became, more introverted, and the warmer light Kody once shone on him gradually cooled. It's impossible not to speculate whether Kody just relates to the children better who satisfy his attention craving. Around the 8-minute mark, a heartbreaking pattern emerges. Solomon was barely 7 or 8 when he began fading into the background. At this point he's around 14. And in the last several seasons, we've rarely seen Kody engage with him at all. And that's not typical. Kody usually sticks by his children until they are grown up, and then only drifts away when they begin to test his control. But Solomon, he never pushed back. He just became quieter. And that apparently was sufficient. In a recent scene at Coyote Pass, Solomon is skipping rocks along with an older sister. He's present, but on the periphery, no substantive interaction with Kody. It's a cry from the boy who was once held in his father's arms. Now he's scenery? It's those moments when you sense the emotional pressure piling up. Solomon's increasing feeling of loneliness did not come overnight. It intensified during the pandemic, as lockdowns removed daily routines, school, and social interaction. But what exacerbated it was when Robyn removed her children from the rest of the family. Out of safety, she insisted. Solomon wasn't even invited to Logan's wedding. That sort of exclusion doesn't merely set a child apart physically, it erodes emotional connections that were already strained. Ariella, being younger, never got to fully enjoy the extended Brown family unit before it broke apart. She doesn't have the same emotional recollection of it. But Solomon? He was old enough to experience it all. The coziness, the closeness, the downfall. And of Robyn's children, he might have experienced the fall the hardest. Kody's parenting of his boys has always appeared complicated, perhaps even conflicted. It could be a result of his own childhood. His dad, Win, was said to be strict, if not sometimes downright harsh. And though Kody might have attempted to avoid that model, particularly with his more sensitive sons, what he's settled on instead, too often feels emotionally removed. Consider Solomon, for instance. He's quiet by nature, contemplative and reserved. But combined with Robyn's extremely protective parenting approach and minimal exposure to the outside world, you can't help but ask, is this environment aiding in his development or stunting it? And when the cameras turn off, what sort of resilience will Solomon bring into adulthood? Currently, Ariella has the complete attention of Kody's love and adoration. She's young, vibrant, and energetic enough to soak it all in. But as she enters adolescence, asserts her independence, and perhaps even begins to push back against him, will that connection remain strong? Or will it, like Solomon's, fade away unannounced? Because let's be honest, Solomon's close connection with his father seems to have evaporated, not with a fight, not with rebellion, just silence and distance. And while we're on the subject of fading relationships, let's talk about who really pulled the strings on the family's move. It wasn't Kody, it was Robyn, quietly, completely. And everyone saw it. He made a big production out of it. Dramatic performances, printed leaflets, meticulously practiced pronouncements regarding the future. But the other wives were not impressed. They appeared to be truly confused, even blindsided. The red flag was waving high at that time, but only a few were prepared to notice it. Robyn, however, sat quietly through it all. She talked softly, saying things such as, "It's frustrating, but not the end of the world," and speaking lightly about Dayton's college plans. It was as if she had already heard the verdict. She'd watched the statement and packed the suitcases. The most probable outcome, Dayton lightly brought up a desire to attend school in Flagstaff, and Robyn seized upon it. She noticed her window of opportunity and pushed Kody in that direction. It wasn't some grand family decision. It was something that had already been set in motion, even when the other wives complained, stating they hadn't had a chance to see Flagstaff, that they weren't prepared. Robyn and Kody remained steadfast. That relocation didn't merely change their address. It broke up the family. If they had remained in the cul-de-sac, there's a good chance the family could have maintained some sort of cohesion. Perhaps not blissful harmony, but at least as a unit under one vision. But Robyn and Kody were determined to leave, and to this day have not taken any genuine responsibility for how things turned out. They keep the narrative that this was a collective decision, that everyone was in agreement, but anyone observing could tell the truth. This wasn't consensus, this was strategy. Robyn's true motivation, it appears to be linked with Dayton. She didn't want to risk losing him as he entered adulthood. She couldn't bear to let go. So she closed it in the rhetoric of support. But what it actually resembled was control. Instead of allowing him to experience his independence, she trailed after him, literally, emotionally, and geographically. That is not guidance. That is overreach. By the time Kody finally made the official declaration to relocate the whole family, it seemed like even Robyn didn't anticipate him to go so far. In a sense, she might have been emulating the life she witnessed in her own childhood. Her own dad allegedly split his time between places, similar to the way Kody began doing. And perhaps Robyn thought Kody would simply fly in and out to see her in Flagstaff as she established a new life independently with her kids. Now here's when the double standard rears its ugly head, and it's difficult to ignore. If Christine had proposed a relocation for Aspen to attend college in Colorado, you can guarantee the response would have been entirely different. Kody would have deemed it irresponsible. He'd say Aspen needed self-sufficiency, that the family couldn't accommodate another move. He'd recite a dozen reasons why it was such a bad idea: school timetables, money, practicalities. But for Robyn, the relocation was a virtuous sacrifice, something they had to do for Dayton. And at the 13-minute mark, one moment encapsulates everything. At Kody's grand presentation, the sweeping "We go one, we go all" speech, the fraying of the family had already begun, but nobody wanted to acknowledge that. Not yet, not in front of the world. What began as a vision for unity was really the start of the dissolving. Kody used to distribute printed pamphlets to persuade his wives that relocation was the best option. The three original wives thumbed through the pages sheepishly, obviously taken aback. But not Robyn. She opened hers serenely, as if she already knew its contents. And the fact is, she likely did. It wasn't a presentation, it was an act, one that had obviously been rehearsed. That moment wasn't about teamwork or debate, it was about power. And in the background, it was Robyn who had already pulled the strings. In the meantime, when it actually came to parenting, that's when the cracks really started to emerge. Let's take a look at Season 6, Episode 15. The wives are gone, and Kody is in charge of 13 kids. Technically, he's the dad, but in reality, he's drowning from day one. He attempts to sound convincing, guaranteeing a week's worth of plans and activities. But his grand scheme, cooking a heap of hot dogs, hamburgers, and steaks for an entire week, all at once. Not surprisingly, a majority of it gets charred. And meanwhile, the food smokes on the grill. The house goes crazy. One of the children gets hurt, truly becomes ill. The younger boys, particularly Garrison and Gabe, begin to fight. There's no discipline, no order, and the one individual who could have managed it, Logan. But he's not around. His presence is missed immediately. Because Logan wasn't only the oldest sibling, he was the actual father figure in that family. He knew the children. He understood what worked. He was the one person the others could count on. Logan didn't lead through power. He led by being present. Daily, moment by moment. He gave up his own freedom and convenience to be there for his brothers and sisters. He was doing far more than chores or occasional babysitting. He was raising them. And Aspen too took on that role, functioning like a second mom. But unlike Kody and Robyn's carefully staged parenting moments, Logan and Aspen stepped in out of necessity. The family needed them, and they responded. Around the 13-minute mark, we see the real cost of that dysfunction. Parenting a big family requires emotional sensitivity, patience, and leadership. Kody had none, and when the system collapsed, the children revolted in the only way they could: by misbehaving, by fighting, by slipping through the cracks. Even Janelle, who normally kept her cool, appeared shaken. But it was Christine who had always kept things together, managing childcare, household upkeep, and emotional support. She was arguably the most competent parent of the entire family. If Kody had ever been supposed to raise his children hands-on, every day, it's questionable he would have had as many as he did. Then Robyn's emotional meltdown in Season 19. Episode 15. She tearfully admits that she was made to feel gaslit by the family. She speaks about hearing criticism, and asserts she worked hard to enable Kody's relationships with his other wives and children. "I bent over backwards," she says. "I had too high of expectations." To Robyn, it's obvious she thinks she tried, that she desired harmony, that she's the victim of jealousy and resentment. But her words don't entirely match her actions, because when you take a closer look, it wasn't tension, it was exclusion. Kody spent the majority of his time at Robyn's place. The other wives were left waiting, wondering, attempting to make it work with waning support. Robyn objected to equal family events, such as holidays at Mary's or group trips. She complained about Janelle's financial inquiries. And maybe most significant, she demanded that Kody never stay away from her children for longer than a couple of days. So what did occur? The gravitational center became portable. Kody's universe centered around Robyn's home, and everyone else was left to rotate around them, or get left behind. That stress only intensified for Christine. Her worries were pushed aside, her desires were overlooked, and ultimately the affection that once bonded them was traded for frustration and silence. One symbolic gesture made that transition unmistakable. Kody smelted down his first wedding ring, the one that used to symbolize a union with all his wives. He salvaged the gold, saved the diamonds, but rather than reconstituting what he had, he made something new. A ring that only Robyn would ever lay eyes on.
And like that, the old unity of the family, fragile as it was officially over. Kody had once made light of something he felt was sacred between him and Robyn on camera. Something personal, even sexual in nature. It was another revealing moment that spoke to how disconnected he is from boundaries and respect. Robyn's repeated accusations of being gaslit are a continuation of a much bigger Brown family pattern, manipulating the narrative tightly, avoiding accountability, and applying emotional appeals to keep control. She and Kody seem fully on the same page with their account of things. But the divide between them and the rest of the family has only increased. The vision of one big, diverse family, evolved about it. All that's left now are broken households, varied agendas, and a comprehensive catalog of unresolved hurts. And one of the most profound of those wounds was inflicted at Christmas. Kody didn't forget Savannah. He left her out. While he rode around town over the holidays with his brother-in-law, his own daughter stayed home, uninvited, overlooked. No present, no letter, not even a cursory text message. And when someone asked her if he had called, Savannah's soft no and the expression on her face said it all. He hadn't called her since her birthday. And where was Robyn in this whole scenario? The woman who speaks of family more than anything else, the woman who says she's always working to keep the family together, did absolutely nothing for Savannah, her stepdaughter. No call, no present, no act of kindness, nothing. For a person who professes to be all about love and togetherness, Robyn couldn't even come close to the minimum. And that silence is louder than any words ever would be. Yes, Kody's behavior is shameful, but Robyn's silent approval makes her equally guilty. If a man can refuse to recognize his own child on Christmas, and his wife just stands there doing nothing, what does that essentially say about either of them? The reality is, Kody constructed his family on a lie of unity, of commonality, of harmony. But as long as everyone kept in their place, obey, smile for the cameras, don't question, he liked being the main attraction, the hero of his own drama. But the instant his family began to think for themselves, began to live lives he couldn't manage, the entire charade started to fall apart. And what came next wasn't heartbreak, it was ego failure. Instead of reflecting or expanding, Kody retreated. He doubled down on fantasy, returning to the only others who remained willing to go along. The ones who remained loyal. The ones who didn't disrupt the script. No, Kody Brown isn't merely misunderstood. He's an ego-driven man. A man who lived off power, submission and control. And when all of that slipped away, the man we knew on screen slipped with them. Now season by season, we see him redefine selfishness, with Robyn quietly in his corner. That's all for today, friends. Thanks for taking some time with me here on the Sister Wives Daily Scoop. I'm always glad to have you here. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon.